Those were the three fundamental ideas, and what I want to do to begin really is to focus on the first of those and to try at least one way of thinking about how the understandings that have developed out of the learning sciences might be applied not just to legal education more generally, but to the most elusive, difficult, but arguably the most important of the integrative features of legal education, this question of the development of professional identity. And to that end, what I'd like to do is to have you look at a chart and just spend a moment or two, if you would, looking at this. This spells out for you as clearly as we were able to what the aim of the conference is. Several folks were asking this yesterday afternoon, and it came up last night at dinner as well. So here's the answer to the question, what's the conference's aim? And related to that, a further question of what is the developmental learning aim that this rubric of professional identity development is pointing at. So if you take just a moment to look at those two paragraphs. So if everyone has had a chance to read those two paragraphs, the chart or schema that appears at the lower part of the page is really an attempt to translate those somewhat general goals into some more specific questions. And our idea, which may be a bit utopian, is that this could be helpful as a way of navigating through the rest of the conference. So it's not a requirement. We're not asking you to turn these in at the end. But what I want to suggest is to think about filling in this chart gradually as a way of focusing down on the question of what it means to teach for professional identity development. So if you look at the left-hand side of the chart on the rows, the first topic is the topic of learning outcomes. And the literature in learning is very clear that unless you can specify these pretty clearly, you really don't have much of a target to aim at in teaching or in designing educational experiences. And this topic of professional identity development has been one of those things which I think has confused many faculty, probably rightly, because to date there hasn't been a lot of clarity about what those outcomes look like. So while we're not expecting that in a day and a half we're going to be able to do things that nobody else in the world of legal education has done in all of these years, our hope at least is that we'll be able to move toward a kind of benchmark or floor of understanding what some of those outcomes really look like. So that's a big deal, and it's an important matter in itself. If you look at the columns, the what is known is really simply asking, and it's another way of saying, what could you say right away? What is it that you think is pretty clear about what the outcomes would be? The next column, models and resources, is a way of thinking about what you may learn from other participants at the conference. That is, what models seem to be available, what resources, what intellectual possibilities, what ideas are out there which could help clarify and formulate learning outcomes. And then the third column, which I suspect at the end of the conference would be, if we were all honest, the biggest one, will be what do we need to know? What else do we need to know? What needs to be explored? What needs to be understood better? So that's the research agenda. The second topic is curriculum. So if you were serious about achieving those outcomes, the next important question becomes, what kinds of learning experiences, in what sequence, would you set up in order to get there? Very simple, fundamental educational principle that is, especially in the world of higher education generally, and to some degree in the legal academy, is often not paid a lot of attention. So there again, what could you say about that? What would seem to me obvious and definite as what the curriculum should be, perhaps you could say what it should not be, parts of it not be. Then again, what models are available? What's worth looking at further? What might be imported into your own program, and so forth? And then what do you need to know? What further questions does this start to suggest? So I think you see the idea of what this chart is designed to prompt. The third category, pedagogies, the actual means of implementing the movement toward the learning goals, is one that we'll be spending a good deal of time on. We'll be spending 2 whole sessions on it this afternoon, for example. And there again, the idea here is to be able to clarify what seem to be, arguably or with some evidence even, pedagogies that seem to work in achieving specific goals connected to this topic of identity formation. What models and resources are available, and again, what needs to be further researched in order to achieve those goals. And then fourth, another very important topic, the issue of assessment or evaluation. And here, again, the question would be, first of all, what is known about this? What do you do? What do you know that people do that is effective? And this involves another theme that was prominent in educating lawyers, the distinction between summative assessment, which is used essentially to sort achievement, sort students on the basis of achievement, compared to formative assessment, which is actually to try to use assessment devices in order to promote learning. So what assessment devices then seem effective as means of moving learners toward those desired outcomes? Again, the question, what do we know about this? What do you do? What do we know about it? What models, resources are available? What more would you like to know? What more do we need to know to be able, for example, to make a good case for a particular educational strategy? That is a use of certain kinds of assessment in relation to certain kinds of pedagogy within a curriculum that's aiming at specific outcomes.